$1.7 billion. That's a lot of money. Why am I talking about this specific figure of $1.7 billion? I think it's important for everyone to know that that is the amount of money spent per year per state on standardized testing. That is according to the Brown Center on Education Policy. My name is Jennifer DeForge. I am an early childhood education major. I am a preschool teacher at a local nonprofit. I am also a mom of 3 children, Shane, David, and Isabel. I have an invested interest in the education of all children, and I question the importance of standardized testing. Whether or not you are for or against standardized testing, it stands to reason that they were implemented to better education. Taking an invested interest in the education of children should be applauded. It's fair to assume that all that were involved in the No Child Left Behind Act, which is what catapulted our nation into standardized testing across 50 states, you should be applauded for those who were involved. But I'm not quite so sure that 12 years later, it is the right approach. It seems education is leaving the true value of education behind instead. The bigger picture of learning has been overlooked and forgotten. The money spent on standardized testing should be redirected into the schools themselves, rather than be given to private testing publishing companies. The value of education and learning needs to be resumed in the schools across the nation. No school district is immune to the cuts in the budget. We are not living in a healthy economy right now. This leads to less jobs. Fewer jobs equates less spending. Decreased spending means there's less revenue to tax. The states are receiving less in taxes and have to make cuts to balance a budget. These cuts are affecting the education budget. Layoffs are resulting in staff, thus making our classrooms larger. And our students suffer for this. I already showed you the figure of $1.7 billion. I think it's interesting to note that 13 companies received $669 million of that money. Every single one of these companies are a private company. They are not a profit. They are not looking out for the best interest of our children. So, what are we paying with this $1.7 billion? New York City received 65,000 test booklets with errors. School administrators from Arizona were forced to discard computer disks containing test results. They were left no choice but to resort to paper and pen grading that they were unprepared for. The technical error stemmed from CTB McGraw-Hill, the company that had been hired to do this, and resulted in a delay in grading. The exit exams for graduating high school students were late. Connecticut, my home state, almost lost $1 million in funding from the federal government due to an error. The company Harcourt had a scanning error and was late in returning the test results. Their tardiness caused Connecticut to miss their deadline for reporting scores. These are only a few of the errors that have been reported and that I'm reporting to you. So has the nation seen improvements? Well, let's take a look here, okay? In 2002, the United States was ranked 18th in PISA, which is the Program for International Student Assessment. In 2009, we were ranked 31st. We went down after after standardized testing was implemented. The rankings in science dipped, and reading remained the same. There were no advances. It has not proven itself. The standardized testing focuses on math and reading. There's a little bit of science within it. The teachers have to dedicate a lot of classroom time to these specific subjects. In some cases, their jobs depend on it. The higher test scores will allow you to receive better funding. Lower test scores may cause the state to take over your school. This will allow the school very little autonomy in the way the school is run. How accurate are these tests that we are receiving? I'm not really sure. If a school is doing poorly on these standardized testing, does it seem like a good solution to give them less money to help the students? I don't think so. So has the quality of education improved? So teachers are devoting their time to reading and math, which are very important subjects. But there's other subjects that are being pushed aside. What about art? What about history? What about geography? What about civics? They're not getting a lot of time in our classroom. This is according to Mr. Ravitch in 2010, who wrote an article for Huffington Post. Physical education is also taking a backseat. Mrs. Obama will tell you all about the obesity level rising in our nation. So some of you may be familiar with the term teaching to the test. The teaching technique of rote learning, which is basically people memorizing things but not fully or even at all understanding. I'm not saying that rote learning does not have a place in the classroom, but when your entire curriculum is based on rote learning so that your students can pass the test, so that you can keep your job, so that your school can continue to receive funding, I'm not thinking that is in the best interest of our children. So let's step outside of the United States for a minute. Finland has remained in the top 15% for the past decade. It's a long time. They were top ranked in 2000, 2003, and 2006. Do you know that no students in Finland participate in any form of standardized testing? None. Finland gives educational resources to those who need it most. They don't base it on a test score. Money is given to support the teachers, not to support private companies. Teachers are given the opportunity to continue their education, and in turn they become effective and skilled teachers. The schools are entrusted to make their own decisions on what is best to teach and what techniques should be learned. The schools in Finland focus on the entire student. They receive health care, food, dental care, access to special education services. They're not pieces of data. They're not test scores. They're treated like people. They're cared for, and as a result of that, they flourish academically. So let's recap. What has really been gained? I'm not really sure. I think that the No Child Left Behind Act had great intentions. An emphasis on education is important. And it is vital to our nation, to our future leaders, that we keep our education system thriving. Why don't we take that $1.7 billion away from the private companies? Why should those companies profit while our school systems struggle? Pick up a newspaper, listen to the news. Hear the budget cuts to the school districts? Hear the outcries of tax-paying parents? Hear the frustrations of the teachers trying to make do with less supplies and less support. Take that $1.7 billion. Create strategies that work. Work on multiple ways to teach the variety of children in our classrooms. Hire more teachers. Reduce the class size. Empower the children with knowledge, creativity, and self-worth. This puts education in the forefront. Infuse the value of education in children. Celebrate the strengths and weaknesses of each children. Value education, not the test. Thank you.